Hello there everybody, Fast Lego Studios here, and welcome back guys to week number 6 of building up the Lego life-sized Captain Rex sculpture. Let's jump right into it. Alright guys, and diving right away into week number 6 of building up Captain Rex, I've got a lot of progress that I want to get done in this week's episode. Starting off with the front, is I want to get this a lot more built up, get a lot more height up here, as well as get the mouth right away into place. Last week's episode, I started that with this one little 1x2 Lego plate here, but hoping to expand it in this week's episode. Get that entire U shape essentially right the way into place, and expand the blue marking going right the way in the center a lot higher. Taking a closer look of what I want to get done off on the sides here is finish off these cylindrical shapes going right about here, get even more plates attached, get that all nice and finished off, and begin building up the wall right the way here, going right the way up off the build. And towards the back of the build here, I just want to get this even further expanded, get all of this built up, curved in, and continue building up the model. And taking a closer look over onto the top of Captain Rex, the main thing that I want to get done in this week's episode is really to attach the framing for the aluminum rod running right the way in the center of the helmet. As you guys know, I'm building up the entire full-scaled Captain Rex sculpture, and to secure that, I'll be using the entire aluminum rod just running from his body into his helmet for a much more secure connection that Lego bricks cannot offer. So I'll be essentially making a frame that's going to be running out in struts, going into a center connection, which then will holster the aluminum armature and connect everything together. So that is my main goal for this week's episode, on top of everything that I said earlier. So you guys know the drill. Let's dive into those progress updates and continue building up Captain Rex. Alright guys, and diving right the way into progress update number 1 here, you guys can see that I've added on a lot of building going right the way around the entire build. But starting off with the front here, you guys can see that I've added on the entire mouth, just running from one side over to another. Just as I said before, starting with this 1x2 black Lego plate, I'll be building it up even further, and I've done so, and the result looks phenomenal. As well as I've got the blue marking running right the way up into the mouth and continued from this point forth. Soon enough, this once again will be running into the visor and just curving around it and getting that outline all complete. As we turn the build slightly around here, you guys can see that I've got a little bit more progress with the weld line running right the way up. A lot of progress still to go here, but nonetheless, I've got the very beginnings of that all complete, getting the, once again, contrast of the dark tan with the medium nougat, making that pattern look a lot more realistic and making it look a lot nicer. So plenty of progress still to go, as we got to get this weld line connected up into this blue marking. But then as we continue rotating the build a little bit more, you guys can see that I've got the entire plate segment of the build all complete. Getting this really nice curve complete over on the side here, and beginning to build up the model vertically. So a new stage of the build has finally come about, and we're about to begin building a lot higher into the build. This gets me very excited, as we're about to continue building to a new height. A lot more bricks are going to be placed onto the build, meaning the construction is about to speed up quite a lot. But then as we continue to turn the build slightly even more around here, towards the back side, you guys can see that I've got even more of the shaping all complete. You guys can see that I've got the plates running right the way up as well, similar as with the side, getting that finish really nicely done and beginning to curve right the way up. Once again, this will as well be running vertically, similar towards how this will be as well, running vertically up. So it's going to be a very geometric pattern on how all of this will be built. And taking a closer look over into the inside of the build here, you guys can see that I've added on the structure or the frame, just as I said I'll do before, into the build. I finally got that all nice and installed. It's really nice and secure at this point in time, so I'm really happy about that. A lot of progress still to go into the build here, but for now, we finally got that beginning of the structure all nice and built up. Soon enough, I'll be building this up even more and then connecting even more struts out into the rest of the build, and then that'll be even more secure than what we have right here. But with all of that being in mind, guys, let's move on to the time lapse and continue building up Captain Rex. Alright guys, and diving in right after the time lapse, you guys can see that I've gotten a lot of progress going right the way up the sides and the front of the build. Starting off with the front, you guys can see that I've got the weld line right the way in place. I've got that connected going from this area here all the way nice and up into the blue marking right the way off the side. I've got that all nice and done. And then taking a look over onto the visor right way here, I've started that, but a lot more progress is really to be done, going all the way, just making that outline, finishing that off. And trust me guys, by the end of that, it's going to look a lot nicer, a lot more iconic. So stay tuned for next week's episode, as I'll be attaching all of that in a place. But nonetheless, taking a closer look over into the visor here, you guys can see that I've got a contrast between having the Lego jumper plate elements and with the Lego just bricks and plates just slanting inwards, making that shape just make that visor essentially just curve a lot more in. And in the end, I'm once again really happy with the end result. And taking a closer look over onto the side of the helmet here, you guys can see that I've got the weld line just running its way nice and down like so. On the previous version of the helmets, I did skip out on this simply because I did not have any of these medium blue Lego pieces, especially plates, to be continuing that, so I just filled it in with white, but finally got those in and am continuing that weld line running right the way up. And then it'll be just about finishing off right up here as it kind of expands up higher, curves in, and that will be all of that there. And towards the back of Captain Rex's helmet, you guys can see that I haven't gotten too much progress back here, simply because I've been really focusing upon building up the front, getting those weld lines in place, but nonetheless, just a very blank build back here, nothing too special, as it's all just consisting of all the various shapes and such, just a really geometrical look in the end, and nonetheless, all the shaping really adds up to a very nice sculpt in the end result. But just once again building this up even higher to a vertical level, but that will all be continued in next week's episode. And then taking a look over onto the top of the build, you guys can see that up here I've gotten a little bit more progress to the frame of the aluminum armature that's supposed to be going right the way in the center. I've got a little bit more of that building all complete. The build is really beginning to solidify a lot more. I probably could pick this entire build up by the center core, but I'm not going to do that quite yet, as I want to solidify this to an even further extent to secure it a lot nicer and a lot stronger. So as I continue to build out these struts going right the way off the side here, just kind of repeating the very same pattern, altering between levels on how that's all getting connected, and in the end, once again, securing it to a much greater level. But with all of that being in mind, guys, I think it's time to outro out the video. And there we are, guys, at the end of building up Captain Rex for week number 6. We've made some amazing progress in this week's episode as we really built up the model to a much greater extent. And we built up the sides of the helmet much higher. We've got those curves and those really nice finishes off the sides of the build all complete, as well as we got quite a little bit of detail being placed all around the model. We've got that mouthpiece going right the way into place, those weld lines right beside the mouthpiece all finished off, and just about finishing off the weld lines right the way on the sides of the helmet. A lot of progress has been done and nearly complete in this week's episode, but once again, will be continued all in next week's episode. And speaking of next week's episode, we'll be building up the visor of Captain Rex, finishing that off, getting all of that complete, just getting everything just right the way in place, getting that outline all done, getting the back of the model a lot more higher, getting a lot more height back there, finishing all of that off, and seeing what other progress I can get from that point forth. So stay tuned for next week's episode, as it's going to be making a really big turn in the building of this model, making it look a lot more iconic and a lot more like Captain Rex. But with all of that being in mind, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you guys are new, and comment down below in the comment section of what are your guys' thoughts of the LEGO Captain Rex sculpture so far. But with all of that being said, keep on building, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.